What's that? Oh, a long time ago? Oh, that's right. A long time ago. Not in a galaxy far away. Yeah, right here on what they call planet Earth. But it was a long time ago. So it don't matter, right? If something happens a long, long time ago, and it takes you a really, really long time to figure it out, how something actually happened that happened a long, long time ago, really happened. Yeah, it was a long time ago. That means it doesn't matter no more, right? Well, that's usually the conditioned thinking of the minds now. But if something happened a long time ago, affected your life every day for a long, long time, it's hard to stop thinking about it and say it just happened a long, long time ago. Well, 9/11, September 11th, that happened. It happened a long time ago. But that doesn't matter no more. It happened a long time ago. Sure, tragedy. A lot of people were upset, but it happened a long time ago. You wouldn't want them to be upset again. Like every time they bring it up and still never tell them the truth about what happened. You wouldn't want them to be upset like that again. Like every time they do, you have to hear about it. Because it was a long time ago. Well, a long time ago was a long time. Someone has to think about it, You start thinking how, it's affecting my life. This thing that happened September 11th, it affected my life a long time ago. But it continued to affect my life in many different ways after it happened. Not just mine, but it affected people's lives. So, well, how did it really happen? Can't stop thinking about it. 20 years. Well, shoot, if you think about it for that long, you're gonna have to figure it out eventually. You're never gonna stop thinking about it. But, well, it's already been figured out. The conspiracy video. The conspiracy video said that 9/11 was controlled demolition. Well, obviously. Duh. Well, they already told him. They told who did it, too. With some serious psychology, embedded commands, without actually saying who they're pointing the finger out. They give you all the feel, point the finger with pictures, and say, go get them. And they point pictures at people. The conspiracy video. And most of the people they pointed at, like George Bush at the end of every one, and they point the finger at, with subliminal commands, making it, pretty much your thought that he did it when they do it on the videos, without them actually saying it. Well, that's a lot of psychology I noticed. Well, I've been studying it for 20 years on those videos. I noticed that. Goldstein. I mentioned the name something Goldstein. Larry Goldstein. Oh, that's right. Somebody bought and leased the World Trade Centers during the time that the controlled demolition, they say, was done. That means it was wired up, they're saying then, because he bought the property. And dogs were removed from it, they said. That means it was done then. That's when it was done. If you want to trace it down and really find who could have did it, you're going to have to know when it was done. So, well, that's what Goldstein was for on the videos. Was pretty much to hide when it was done. When were those buildings, which obviously fell from controlled demolition, done? And I see the hard part about it is getting past the ammunition. Well, when they throw somebody out there, like the government, and point all the pictures subliminally that they did it, and well, who couldn't believe that they wouldn't do it, or didn't? It's pretty easy to bite that bullet every time, no matter how convincing it is. I noticed that for 20 years of studying those things, and never believing I was being told how it was done. I noticed that. But one day, without watching these videos over again, I've seen them so many times, I went back over what these conspiracy videos were telling me of 9/11. And I learned a lot of psychology, I believe, some tricks of sleight of tongue and embedded commands or pictures, how you trick the brain. Over time you learn things, so I learned some things. And I kept noticing that they were being used all over these conspiracy videos, these 9/11 conspiracy videos. At that point, I had to rethink everything that I heard and was shown to me and see if I could spot what was really going on. How was it really blindfolded? How is it being covered up? Well, you see, the thing is, the news pretty much says, here's our expert. Pretty much just happened a second ago, but we got to figure it out. That's all I heard on that side of the story. The government never really said nothing. They're too busy blaming it on George Bush now because of the conspiracy videos that brainwash the youth where they're attacking. Because the older people are going to believe the news. But their so-called experts say they come out of left field out of nowhere right as it's still falling. They say they got it figured out. And then the videos of conspiracy are for the youth, the younger visions that are going to think about it a little more on their own terms and try to figure it out. And give them some facts right away and say, hey, it's controlled demolition. Now we're sucked in. Now let me point the finger where to go and release the anger. And notice that was being done watching these videos and what they've said on these medias about 9/11 for 20 years. Well, one day I sat back and I thought about it in a different angle and started thinking about it as watching the psychology role and seeing if I could spot things. Then I noticed, and I was like, okay, I see where they're pointing the finger at the end of every one of these videos. Media is not telling me the truth either. Well, it turns out that they were both made by the same hands. Left hand, media, right hand, video. They're both the same person, throwing you off, telling you what you need to be fueled. It was controlled demolition, then pointing you with the subconscious. It's your idea, you figured it out, feel so happy about it, pointing your finger. Situation, every time. No matter which way you go, you're never going to figure it out. Never. Well, I figured it out one day. I figured out how 9/11 was really done. You see, I came to the conclusion finally, I don't think the government knows how 9/11 was done. And if they did, they're not going to tell anybody that for a lot of reasons they don't know. I don't know because of the psychology. Because of the psychology they used throwing pictures out with subliminal commands, making it the viewer's idea themselves that they figured out who did it. I knew it was pointing me towards the wrong direction always. But then, I still was never going to get really grasp at how it was really done. Just even studying their fake targets they throw at you. But then, a lot of the videos said something very specific to me. And I kept helping wonder if they were trying to hide something right in front of my face, calling it plain sight. Calling the video plain sight. Hey, we're showing you in plain sight. This is what it's all about. Well, they're actually pulling plain sight shit on you. Well, they said dogs were removed from the building after Goldstein purchased and leased the property, meaning he had to have something to do with it, and it was done then, pointing out a time frame when it could be done. If you researched it, you tried to investigate it, where it would lead you. Goldstein, dogs were removed. That's when they did it. You see, that's when I noticed, wait a minute, what are they really trying to No, they're trying to show you something they're saying, but they're really trying to hide something. They're trying to hide the date when those buildings were actually set to fall. Then I noticed the big rocket ship antenna. The big rocket ship antenna on top of the buildings. You know, anybody that's sitting there listening to a video point out controlled demolition and all these technical ways of how it was done and operated, you would probably point at that big antenna and say that's how they set it off, was with the big antenna. It's really for nothing. It's pretty extra big antenna on top of these buildings for nothing. That's how they did it. The fact they avoided the big antenna on top of the World Trade Centers and not mentioning it being involved in controlled demolition really got me kind of curious on that. Well, if I thought about the antenna, I would start thinking about when the building was built. Because, the antenna has been there since the World Trade Centers were built. So if I was making a conspiracy video of World Trade Centers and I'm getting into detail of controlled demolition, I got it all figured out. I'm showing to you you're going to be smart for being technically active and figuring it out with this. They never point at this antenna. There's no conspiracy about the big, giant, extra large antenna on top of this building. And I was like, well, what is it about the antenna that nobody would mention or notice? Well, the buildings were built with it. I would start thinking about the buildings were built, when they were built. Then, wait, you mean the dogs were given a fake date of when these buildings were wired up, so if you investigate, you would never find who actually owned the property or anything? And they avoided this big antenna on top of it and everything, so nobody would think about these buildings were built to fall when they built them for a long-headed plan? You see, when I started realizing that, and the dog thing being removed, they removed the dogs from the World Trade Centers, and Goldstein just bought the property, he knows about it, and it was wired up then, while building number 3 fell. And that's when it got technical. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing a big picture here. Now it's pointing out here. These buildings were built to fall when they built them. And they're avoiding all sorts of things that would make someone look at that or even think about when the buildings were built. Because, I don't just watch videos and go, oh, controlled demolition. Okay, yeah, I know everything about it now. I actually study them, And one thing I noticed about controlled demolitions is even on mid-sized buildings nowhere near the World Trade Centers, they have to be emptied and gutted, and lots of drilling on it floor by floor and precision to get these things to fall. And these are nothing near the World Trade Center sized buildings. There is no way anybody could take a full building and right in front of everybody's face while they're there and operating that building, do any kind of setup for controlled demolition of those World Trade Centers. That's why it was important to notice building number 3. I was like, okay, I see a big throw off here. I'm like, okay, what if the buildings were built to fall when they built them? And we're covering that up with the dog saying it was now that they were wired up. And it was done by Goldstein because he just leased properties. Then I realized, okay, I see where they're pointing the ammunition always. But how could I explain that? And then I thought about it. What if Goldstein bought the properties, and those World Trade Centers were built to fall when they built them, and he knew nothing about it, not nothing. And someone came out of nowhere and said, building number 3, they didn't get hit by nothing, but it was clearly controlled demolition. Like Goldstein said, we decided to pull it.